Hi, this is Cajun, and it's time for a weekly conference call at vectorspaceai. We'll start with two questions. We usually address what's happening around the world, globally, and we like to ask ourselves internally, what's driving markets globally, and with BTC closely correlated? And how closely does BTC correlate as the markets move and gyrate? The other question we ask ourselves is what will be driving the markets 6 months from now? And that's just about more important than understanding where we are today. So using data points that we have today, such as the U.S. Employment Benefit Program being extended, and we know that other stimulus packages are being extended around the world related to other countries and other cities. And we also note that, along with other economists and market analysts, that this is causing a delayed reaction in terms of how consumer demand will be declining in the future. So 6 months from now, we could be looking at a significant decline in consumer demand. At the same time, the markets are reaching new highs based on sectors that are providing valuable services during this shift in the way the world operates. Airbnb is IPOing, and a few other IPOs are scheduled to go out in the coming months. I think Airbnb is scheduled to go out this month. On the industry side, Microsoft researchers claim state-of-the-art biomedical NLP model. And last week, we mentioned that MIT produced a bit of research related to the fact that NLP is chasing the wrong goal. SOTA models and academic benchmarks are not what it's about. So it's interesting how the industry is shaping up. There are some that are ahead of others in terms of their practical application of NLP. On the crypto side, we've seen that Goldman Sachs is developing their own coin. That's interesting. JP Morgan was developing their own as well. MicroStrategy, a publicly traded company, made a massive $250 million bet on crypto, BTC in particular. We'll talk more about that in our strategy section. We'll go straight to engineering. We usually go to corporate development from here, or what's happening on the corporate side internally. But we'll handle that after this. We've got a small reorganization in the way that we'll handle the outlines of these meetings. So on the engineering side, operations, product, QA, curation, and R&D. We're going to wrap all those in one category here. We're working on the dataset toolkit, and we've been talking about this for some time. It's not just something you whip together. It is something that's given to a data engineer so they can immediately see the value of the data sets by simply executing a few commands. They'll start with the visualization, of course, looking at the relationships we provide that are clustered from the data sets that we generate. As long as they can visualize relationships and act with some degree of data interpretation successfully, where they can also validate the relationships, that is what the dataset toolkit provides. It's like an onboarding. It's an onboarding component. It's one component of many that help us reduce friction when it comes to onboarding customers. And data engineers are one of our customer segments, along with traders and investors. So under the dataset toolkit, we've got deliverables that are assigned to a few of our engineers. And I'm not going to go over those deliverables in detail because most of them contain highly proprietary methods, components, and things that we do. But in general, we can go over them. One of the first things that happens is we select the data source, then we create a stop words list, we pre-train a model. And we also create a correlation matrix after that. We tune and we pre-process and post-process during that portion of the pipeline. We also add primary data sources and proprietary data sources, and then generate final correlation matrix data sets, which are updated in near real time. At the end of our pipeline, we have a data interpretation and visualization component, and there we create relationship networks, hidden relationship networks, along with the ability to validate why those relationships might exist between cryptos, stocks, genes, proteins, drug compounds, or infectious diseases. We also have advanced options and customizations that we are working on that we actually cannot go into. On the engineering side, we also have a new product line we are launching, and it relates to personalized data sets for precision medicine. And if you don't know what precision medicine is, we'd recommend that you look that up. It has a lot to do with the way that the world is headed today in terms of all the funding being moved into life sciences. You can look at it being moved into precision medicine. And in order to engage in precision medicine, you need to determine what you can do with a person's genomic profile. And in that, we've got deliverables for this milestone related to acquiring test results from 23andMe. We've got a few test submissions from a few individuals. We'll be working with 23andMe in terms of understanding what kind of data we can access and get access to legally, and following all regulation related to privacy issues and health. We'll then conduct an initial analysis on the data to generate a sample data set, and we'll then take it to next steps with 23andMe, and we'll also choose a microbiome data provider as well. We'll be working with Lawrence Berkeley Lab, their biosciences division, on some of this, and we'll also be partnering with Ancestry.com, who just got bought by Blackstone, which is a private equity group most are familiar with. Ancestry.com was bought for $4.7 billion, and that is a significant move, not just in terms of the economy, but in terms of life sciences and where things are headed. So we're paying close attention to that. In our next engineering category, we've got short-side data sets, and this is something we've done before and executed on before. But why? Well, the U.S., according to J.P. Morgan, the U.S. will eventually experience the normal effects of a recession. But it's going to be delayed. And this is what we've been talking about for some time, and others. So short-side data sets are in order. We've been talking about that as well for a bit here. And the market is continuing to be propped, as we can tell. And that means that we have a bit of time to optimize our short-side strategy, our short-side data sets. And that involves optimizing outside of the backtest. Obviously, we don't want to overfit on those. So that's what we're working on, improving the Sortino ratio with the backtests. And then, of course, we'll have a few outlets write about that in terms of offering an exclusive to them. Alpha Week might be one of them. S&P Global might write about it. On the next section in engineering, we have QA and curation under engineering. And if you're not familiar with QA and testing and curation, if you're not an engineer, haven't worked for a technology company, you know that QA and curation is a large part of what happens. It's quality assurance. And for a company like ours, QA happens a lot differently than a standard software engineering organization. Our QA relates to quality, precision, and accuracy. Relevance as well. And these things can be subjective a lot of the time, especially if you're not operating on state-of-the-art benchmarks, because you're operating on industry standards, for example, or the bottom line as your judge. So what we're looking at doing is making sure that we have a tightened up quality assurance team, and that we are validating relationships to the best of our ability in terms of relationships between drug compounds and public companies, or global events and a group of cryptos, a basket of cryptos, or in the case of CERN, particles and their relationships to other particles, not just based on the experimental data they generate, but based on relationships in literature that have been around for some time and new relationships in the literature of theoretical particle physics. Also, of course, validating relationships between cryptos and other cryptos and global events and equities and other equities and global events and topics and so forth. Under quality assurance and curation, we also have customer onboarding quality assurance, and I'm personally leading that. This just means that we fill the role of a customer internally, and we go through the entire onboarding process and continually optimize and smooth it out to reduce friction. Next on the engineering side is CERN, and we've constructed a crawling architecture that's 100% complete. We're engaged in pre-processing and feature extraction at this point and generating a few preliminary data sets. Visualization is up next, and that might happen in a couple of weeks. And we have standard DevOps operations happening. I should say DevOps events, DevOps deliverables. One of them relates to acquiring free AWS credits. We've had Microsoft, AWS, and Google offer us free credits based on the work we're doing with COVID-19. So we'll take them up on that. Now we can move to the corporate development side. And underneath the corporate dev side, we've got customers, partners, and collaborators. We can start there. And we can segment these into industries. For example, the financial markets, our number one priority is S&P Global, number 2, Bloomberg, number 3, FactSet, number 4, New Data. We've got others. Those are the ones we're focusing on now in the financial markets or in the financial sector. On the life sciences side, it would be 23andMe and, of course, our current academic collaborations. And on the on the R&D side, we've got CERN, and that's it. For that, we've got chemicals. The chemical section, where we still have Colgate-Palmolive and Procter & Gamble on the trial tier. And that goes for the rest of our partners. And we haven't talked about Amazon and Microsoft in a while. They are still on deck. We are timing everything appropriately. We also have new customers signing up on a regular basis, and this would include small firms and firms like multi-billion-dollar firms like Workday. WDAY is their symbol. On the revenue side, we've got customer number 1. We've got the SOW delivered, the statement of work, and that is 100% complete. We've also got, I'm just making a few notes here myself, we've also got payment complete from them. We've also got customer number 2, where SAL requirements gathering is taking place, and data source targets are being established, and payment methods are being agreed on. And we've got a data engineering pipeline, and how they want it delivered, and that would be mainly through an API. We've also got the customer number 3, and we'll just say customer number 3 is in process now, and we are certainly bound by confidentiality agreements on that one. And we're still within the customers, partners, and collaborators section. So we'll talk about Silvergate Bank, and we have a DD request, a due diligence request from them. So we're going to be filling out a form and sending them an introductory letter about who we are and who vouches for us, who's vetted for us. For example, S&P Global, and if we get past Bloomberg, that would be great too. Silvergate Bank is also going to be used to assist with some of our trustology work and our investment club setup. We also have Dragon Gateway, and this is a partner of ours, and we are doing ongoing work with them in terms of number one, building buzz, number two, a possible capital raise depending on the terms. On the strategy side, we've got ongoing SWOT analyses happening, and SWOT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's what that stands for. Most of you are probably familiar with it on the exec channel, but this is a document that we maintain. If you're not familiar with it, look up SOWT. We also have ongoing competitor matrices, but a master competitor matrix that we maintain. You see us posting sometimes on our public channels related to what might look like a competitor engaged in maybe dataset distribution or feature generation, feature engineering, or something like that. We track all of those, but we do track our top competitors, serious competitors mainly, not just noisemakers. And we'll go into a little bit more on strategy in just a bit. Just wanted to mention two deliverables that we had under the strategy side there. On the sales and marketing side, that's steady as she goes. On the IR, PR, and Marcom side, we are continuing to work on a demo video, and we've got storyboards we're working on with Jim, our agency, along with Chris Bartlett, myself, Jim Leftwich, and Cam. We've also got our second installment of, I shouldn't say installment yet, as any submission we provide to any journalist or editorialist it's wholly up to them in terms of what they print. But we will be submitting a copy, and this is going to be related to the Palantir IPO basket. And speaking of competitors, Palantir is one of our competitors, but we'll be constructing a basket based on what Palantir does, a basket of equities and cryptos, any cryptos that qualify or related or that compete with Palantir. And we'll be constructing this basket and comparing its historical performance over time, just as we've done with the coronavirus basket, and just as Alpha Week highlighted that in their last article. And again, this might get syndicated across our current partners' sites and networks, including S&P Global and Bloomberg. And speaking of S&P Global, that comes up next under IR, PR, and Marcom. We are working toward a PR announcement from their side, and that's in progress, and we'll have more updates on that in the coming days. We've also been talking with FactSet, and we are going to be working with FactSet in a similar way that we're working with S&P Global and Bloomberg's Alternative Data Group. FactSet is a publicly traded company. FDS is their symbol. We've mentioned them last week, but we do have a more formal relationship that we'll be talking about to the public in the future. FactSet has data that we can use that S&P Global does not provide and Bloomberg does not provide. And of course, partnering with FactSet would be fantastic, and we'll describe some of the reasons why in our next strategy session, our next strategy category here. On the Bloomberg Alternative Data side, that's in process. UBS Evidence Lab, also in process. Met with Elastic, and Elastic is interested in producing a video like they have been for quite some time. That's really up to the resources we have available. They're also interested in producing another article, so we have that option available to us. We also have a couple of other investor networks, and we'll be talking more about those in the future. Those relate to our equity. On the general awareness side and PR distributors side. We're not going to talk about that right now. We don't have any updates, just standard social media execution. And there is one note related to beefing up our LinkedIn company presence. We'll be doing that and fully utilizing LinkedIn along with Reddit. We do, obviously, to some extent now, but we'll be doing it more fully. On the legal side, steady as she goes there. On the HR side as well. On the dataset insights side, we've mentioned augmentation. Dataset augmentation, the importance of combining your current datasets with vectorspace AI datasets and the different kinds of clustering you can achieve. If you can achieve different clustering based on using vectorspace AI datasets, that provides you with new relationships and potentially new discoveries, new hypotheses, and new ways to generate a signal, maintain a signal, protect alpha, and so forth. And this is one application that CERN is implementing. And we've talked about this before. They're simply clustering particles in new ways with vectorspace AI datasets. And we'll be publicly talking about that at some point soon, academically soon. On the investment club side, we're completing a mini prospectus. We'll have updates on that tomorrow, and the update will be a complete mini prospectus describing the year's returns for short side baskets, for equities initially, and then cryptos. Next, we've got traders from the trader base. The first questions from the trader base. The first question is, you were once writing about the reason why projects with low supply are credible in your eyes, if I recall right. Was there an article attached to the topic you guys were discussing in here to further explain why? Yes, there was. We'll post references, but more than that, we'll post our first-hand experience in managing cap tables and re-engineering cap tables and engineering them from the ground up for the purpose of controlling supply or float or market cap for that matter. But more importantly, an accurate NAV calculation, net asset value calculation. Very important the NAV calculations are going to be very important to how crypto companies are valued in the future. Your NAV calculation affects your supply in the public markets. And if you want to model the valuation on a crypto, you're going to have to include revenue, and you're going to have to include NAV. And that's why we put a lot of emphasis on it. Another way we'll be keeping a nice tight cap table is based on the fact that we'll be buying back VXV any chance we can get. And that's based on allocating a portion of the revenue that we generate for that purpose. The next question is, are there requirements for the investment club? Yes, there are. There's a membership fee, which covers running algos and generating specific data sets on public and private GPU clouds. Part of that includes Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, AWS and Microsoft Azure. The next question, where do Palantir and Vectorspace AI compete? That's a very good question. We've talked about this in the past, and this is really based on the quality of the data sets initially. Obviously the quality of the data, the quality of the data sets, and the quality of the algos, and quality being defined by precision and accuracy when it comes to real-world applications. And in particular, we compete in the area of hidden and or unknown relationship networks, generating those automatically using ML and AI and any other kind of techniques, and in our case, natural language understanding, to create these hidden or unknown relationships between entities or between objects, stocks, genes, proteins, cryptos, plant compounds. Palantir also specializes in mimicking portions of human cognition, and that relates to artificial intelligence. We've been doing that for some time, and we understand that that's a big portion of how you create relevant relationships or extract or detect hidden relationships between things, or how you create a basket of stocks or a basket of crypto related to a global event. But when you add it all up, they still need our data sets, and we'll be working with them on that level, depending on the kind of work involved. On the strategy side, we've got MSTR, MicroStrategy. MSTR is their symbol. And when we look at MSTR, we can learn something. One thing we can learn is when you look at the complete historical chart for something like MSTR, you'll know that that company has memories of being $100 a share and moving up, rocketing up to $3,100 a share, over $3,000 a share. And they probably know, management, maybe a few people are still there, they probably know that BTC can do the same thing because they've experienced that with their own stock. If you look at a full historical chart for MSTR, you'll see. But aside from that, that's a big vote of confidence to BTC and crypto as a whole. But that also means that MSTR, traditional market traders, will likely be thinking about positioning in BTC because of MicroStrategy's vote of confidence in BTC. This is what we're looking at. Because we've got companies, publicly traded companies, multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies, like S&P Global, or Elastic, ESTC, or Workday, for example, or Amazon or Microsoft. These companies have huge trader bases. And just as the trader base of MSTR might become more wedded to BTC, we anticipate trader bases of S&P Global, SPGI, AMZN, MSFT, and any other public company, ESTC, that we work with, for their trader bases to be, for it to be apparent that their companies, the ones they're invested in as traders and investors, have placed a vote of confidence in VXV. And we anticipate we'll be the first crypto they think of when they want to begin positioning in crypto. On another note, we're almost ready to be reintroduced to Andreessen Horowitz, but not before Bloomberg's investment arm. And we'll be talking, it's called Bloomberg Beta, and it's their corporate investment arm. We'll be talking with them as things progress. We'll also be talking with S&P Global's investment arm and a few others. But especially S&P Global, as they mentioned, that part of their M&A strategy was to acquire companies like ours. And of course, we've got Amazon and Microsoft. All of these companies, most of them today have investment arms. And we plan on establishing dialogues with each of them. This has been a pre-recorded call. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them online or submit them to us on any of our public channels. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next week.